All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Origin and Cause's webinar titled Ask an Expert, Open Mic Discussions with Leading Forensic Engineers. My name is George Costandi, and I will be your moderator today. We're really excited about today's webinar. It's the first time we do an open mic format, so we're really excited to see how it goes. I just wanted to go through a couple of quick points with you first. If you're joining in through your computer to see the slides, you'll notice the GoToWebinar console on the top right of your webinar screen. Please submit your questions in the little question box there, as pointed out in the slide. This is your chance to pick the brains of a wide range of forensic experts all sitting in one room. And based on the open mic format of this presentation, we need you guys to submit questions in order for us to have something to talk about, so please don't be shy. If you have any questions, send them over. We'll try to get to as many questions as possible in this hour. If we don't get to your question in the webinar, we promise to follow up with you after the fact to make sure your questions are answered. If you want a particular expert to answer your question, please write their name in the question. If you have a question and you don't know who would be most appropriate to answer the question, don't worry, just ask it and I will direct it to the appropriate expert. If you're calling in and don't see the slides and you want to submit a question, email us at webinar@origin-and-cause.com. Again, that's webinar@origin-and-cause.com. Also, for support, you can email us at that same email address. Your questions and your identity will only be seen by me. I'll read out your question, but I will keep all identities confidential. And just a quick disclaimer, we're hosting an open discussion here. All information discussed in this webinar is for educational purposes only and should not be applied directly to the administration of any particular file. Also, make sure that you join in on the conversation on Twitter. Our Twitter handle is @origin_cause, and the hashtag for this webinar is #OCWebinar. So make sure you share this event. We're really excited about that. So let's just jump right into the presentation. I want to do a quick overview of who Origin and Cause is, just to kind of get things going so you can understand what type of services that we have, so that it may prompt you or inspire you to ask certain questions. So a quick overview of Origin and Cause. We've been in the business for over 24 years. We're actually going to have our 25th anniversary coming up in 2016. We are the largest forensic engineering and fire investigation firm in Canada with 10 locations and over 30 experts. Our locations include Ancaster, Mississauga, Kingston, Ottawa, Sudbury, London, Windsor, Halifax, Winnipeg, and Calgary. Our services include fire and explosion investigation, canine investigation, structural engineering, electrical engineering, alarm system analysis, mechanical engineering, materials and metallurgical engineering, and mechanical engineering. Okay, now I'll pass on the microphone to each of the expert panelists to introduce themselves.
Hello everyone, my name is Dinu Matei. I specialize in investigations associated with product liability, water losses, materials and mechanical failures. I have over 20 years experience in materials and metallurgical engineering, and I have been involved in approximately 1,000 investigations to date. I am also qualified as an expert in court.
Good afternoon, it's Bryan James. I'm a mechanical engineer with over 15 years of forensic engineering experience. I specialize in vehicles, trucks, and heavy equipment fires, mechanical failures, and product liability, and I've also been qualified as a court expert. In my previous life, I was in manufacturing doing project management, machine design, and commissioning of equipment. So as a result, I also have a strong electrical and controls background.
Welcome everybody. My name is Yasser Qurani. I'm a structural engineer. I do have over 25 years of experience in structural forensic investigations, structural rehabilitation, construction litigation support. To date, I have been involved in more than 400 cases. Prior to joining Origin and Cause, I was a professor of structural engineering at the University of Alberta.
This is Chris Panashevich. I'm a fire investigator and an electrical engineer with over 20 years of experience. I've been qualified by Supreme Court of Ontario as an expert witness.
So while you guys are typing in your questions, I asked the experts a couple of questions myself. The one question that I asked was, what are the two most common questions your clients ask you? So I'll hand off the microphone, and this is the time when you start submitting questions, so please do that. And we'll go through a few of these experts and see what their clients are asking them.
Hi, this is Dinu. One of the most common questions that I was asked during my career as forensic engineer was, are there any chances for subrogation on this file? I would say that in 90 to 95% of the cases, there are chances for subrogation. However, a successful subrogation action depends on individual circumstances of that file and providing the evidence is available and not altered. Also, background information like age of this appliance or component, time of installation, previous problems is important for our investigation. In case of an appliance component failure, the evidence also at microscopic level is there and available. It only needs special tools to be extracted, analyzed, and based on the analysis we can provide an opinion on the most probable cause of the failure, and then you can decide if you proceed further with the subrogation action. This slide illustrates a common water filtration system usually encountered in residences and businesses. And because the evidence was very well preserved, it allowed us to document it in site and also to conduct a site functionality testing. And we also allowed the opposing expert to do the same thing, and then we conducted joint destructive examination and determined that it was the component manufacturing deficiency that led to its failure. Another typical example where a successful subrogation action was launched is about braided hoses usually encountered in our homes. These braided hoses provide water to appliances or to faucets. In this particular case, the evidence was very well preserved. We conducted a site examination, and further joint examination with the opposing expert indicated that it was a manufacturing deficiency. The second most common question that I'm asked is it possible to estimate the cost of forensic investigation, and can we stay within your budget? In short, the answer is yes. However, there are some variables that we have to take into account when we provide an estimate, like travel time, mileage, and types of tools or instrumentations required for the investigation, and also very important if there are any other parties involved. If we approach the budget, we are in contact with our client and we'll keep them informed about the evolution of the investigation and also the evolution of the costs, and on each individual case we discuss which is the best further course of action.
Great, thank you very much, Dino.
Hello, it's Bryan James. One of the top questions I get is that if I send you some photos, can you tell me if it's worthwhile doing a vehicle fire investigation? The example that's shown here actually represents a great example from our Calgary office. They did the remote photos and we did an initial discussion, had some discussions with the adjuster, and basically got it arranged so that we did a joint destructive examination with all of the parties, the manufacturer and any service company. So we do this all the time. At least the initial photos at least give us a starting point for discussion. There's subtle clues, even the pictures that people take with their cell phone at the side of the road or anything, there's subtle clues and bits of information, which way the smoke is going, which way the wind is blowing, all useful information, and provides a sort of screening process This is by no means a full-blown examination. However, it does give us a starting point, and we can help evaluate, or at least provide some information and help people evaluate, is it worthwhile having a look at it. The second example that you see here is one's kind of the opposite end of the spectrum. There wasn't a lot left on this vehicle, but it was still, there's a lot of information still contained within this vehicle. There was different changes in manufacturing or service issues that were performed to this vehicle, and that all that information is still in there. It's just a matter of extracting it and finding it. We do this photo review as a weekly internal quality process, so we also have a set up so that our regional offices can do a photo sequence. That photo sequence is usually very different, or what we're looking for is very different in terms of a photo sequence from what is usually in appraisers or adjusters' photographs, but that gives us kind of an arm's length reach, and we can work with our regional offices and help them out and assist them in looking or screening at least the vehicle fires. This is basically a screening, or provides this screening value to our clients. You know, at the other end of the spectrum, if it's burned bumper to bumper, we'll be quite honest and upfront, and it makes a really, really challenging examination. Second question that I get quite frequently is, does a vehicle fire which occurs in the passenger compartment send up red flags that is deliberately set? So the example you see on the screen is exactly a dashboard fire. Dashboard fires represent their own unique challenge, and there's a whole bunch of, again, the background information. Is the vehicle running? Is it parked? They're all part of the elements that go together to examining the entirety of the site. This doesn't in any way represent just an incendiary or deliberately set fire. There's lots of fuel load in a dashboard, very small compartment space, lots of plastic. The wires are very small items, components, all the computer components that are in there. It requires some digging out and looking through them. The other example that you see up on the screen right now is also another passenger compartment fire. Just because it starts in the passenger compartment doesn't mean that it's an incendiary fire. One of the things that's very unique and challenging about vehicle fires is they represent a huge departure from classical fire structure examination. The fuel load placement and the orientation is different from vehicle to vehicle, and it can change within that model's production run. And most vehicle fires occur outdoors, so even a slight breeze can push or pull that fire and redirect it so that the burn patterns are not necessarily representative of something that burns, like, for instance, in a garage.
Shifting gears from vehicles to buildings. This is Yasser Qurani. I'm going to share with you the two most common questions that we receive in the forensic structural engineering discipline. The first one is the damage due to the reported cause? And in the structural engineering discipline, oftentimes the cause of the damage would appear to be known. It was windstorm, it was a snowstorm that caused the damage to the roof. In this example here of the truss roof structure that you see on the screen, the reported damage was that the roof had been damaged due to snow loads. Upon examining and investigating this case, we were able to determine from the weather data from Canada environment data that the amount of snow accumulation, even in 3 months prior to the incident, did not exceed or were nowhere close to the design snow loads. And we carried out a detailed structural analysis that demonstrated that the plate connections for those steel trusses were not installed properly, and the root cause for this failure in this case was failure of these connecting plates. Yes, the snow was the trigger, but the root cause was the failure due to manufacturing flaw, and we were able to save our client over $100,000 on this file. The second most frequently asked question relates to foundation condition. Can the foundation be salvaged in this loss? This is typically asked for or when a building experienced fire. Here's an example on the screen for a duplex building. On the right-hand side, if you're able to see, there is a brick wall. This brick wall frames a fireplace. Somebody decided to get rid of a Christmas tree by burning the Christmas tree inside this little fireplace. Before long, fire caught up with the entire building. It was a total damage. The question that we were presented with here in this case, what is the condition of the foundation, concrete foundation wall? Could the foundation wall be reused? Careful examination with years of experience on cases like that, and with simple evaluation tools like a rebound hammer, careful visual inspection, we put all those factors together, and we were able to confirm to the client that yes, you don't need to demolish this foundation, and again, that was a considerable saving to the client on this file.
This is Chris Panasiewicz speaking. The most common questions that I receive as a fire investigator and electrical engineer, and I believe the same type of questions are frequently posed to my other colleagues, are how soon can you attend the scene and how soon can you send me a report? At Origin and Cause, we have a standard to acknowledge the receipt of the new assignment and have the best suited forensic expert assigned within 15 minutes from when it's sent to us. In fact, we have great feedback from our clients about the send new assignment function on our website. It only requires a couple of fields for you to fill in, and someone contacts you within minutes via email or phone. This is this big shiny red button on the left of the home page. The forensic expert contacts the client and are at this scene typically on the same day. If we are already working on another scene, we will usually attend the following day. In the event that the scene is still not accessible, perhaps other authorities haven't released it yet, we stay in close contact with the client to find out when we can get out. We've developed and established number of offices throughout Canada exactly for this reason, to provide you with the immediate response. And as George mentioned, we have our locations in a number of cities throughout Canada, and this allows us an immediate response to your assignments. Answering the second question, how soon can you send me a report? We know how important it is for our clients to get even a preliminary information from us, and we always prepare either a formal looking report like you can see on the screen. This is a preliminary report within 24 hours from the completion of the scene examination, but in most cases we call the client right after we completed the examination of the scene, or send an email with a brief summary of our findings. This preliminary report is followed up by a summary report which we normally have ready within the 5 days after we submitted the preliminary report. This summary report is in most cases our final report, but it concludes all the details that our clients need to address the claim. The full report is a very rarely prepared, and it's typically prepared for the cases that are going to court or for the cases that involve subrogation. And this type of report is usually sent to clients within 45 days.
So we're going to be taking your questions now, so please do submit questions. We've had several questions submitted, so thank you very much to all those that have engaged. So let's start off with I have one question here. It says, what should the adjuster do to protect the evidence if they feel that there is a chance of subrogation? This wasn't no particular expert was indicated to answer this question, but I think Dinu, this would be very relevant to you. Would you mind just answering that question for us?
Sure, thank you. This is a very good question, actually. However, there is no direct answer because the answer depends on a case-to-case basis. However, my first advice is document, document, document. Document the evidence from all angles possible, including surrounding components and their relationship, how they were connected, what was the distance, what was in the background. I'll give an example to underline the importance of this documentation. In case of dishwasher, for example, we were indicated that the water leak occurs from the dishwasher itself. Luckily, the dishwasher was provided to us with water supply lines, and functionality testing indicated that the water discharge occurred from the water supply line and not from the appliance. Should the appliance would have been shipped to us without the water supply line, we would not be able to provide an opinion. When you have an appliance, it's either refrigerator, dishwasher, washing machine, document the manufacturing label, which contains significant information like model numbers, serial numbers, and other numbers and codes that could determine the manufacturing date. In case of a water loss, it's important not to allow the plumber who did the install to do the repair. In case of fractured surfaces like axles or shafts, it's important to not rub the fractured surface against each other to see if they fit. Although this is normal in nature, we all tend to do this. It is detrimental for the investigation as the evidence at the microscopic level might be deteriorated during this process. There are instances where, due to safety or health hazards, the evidence needs to be either removed or dismantled before we attend the site. Document it in the best way you can, and feel free to give us a call or send us a quick email, and we will provide advice on a case-to-case basis, free and with no obligation at your end.
Great, thank you very much, Dinu. All right, next question. Sorry, give me a second here. All right, I think this one should go to Chris. It's in regards to fire scene investigation. What can you say is the biggest mistake insurers or adjusters make right on the onset of a new fire loss?
Okay, I can think of a couple of scenarios. One is not securing the scene. It's actually a self-explanatory reason why not securing the scene is so important. Just a couple of words from my experience. I arrived at the scene and I see that the owner of the burned house just is inside, and in fact he carries few pieces of his belongings out to the truck. So scene under no circumstances should have been disturbed prior to a fire investigator examining it, because it may basically create a situation we are not able to find the cause or the ignition source because it would have been removed by another person. Another mistake is would be if we are not called as quickly as possible. The longer the scene stays unexamined, the worse it is later for to conduct a successful examination. So please call us, and in most cases this is what happens, that our clients call immediately. But if I had to think about a couple of mistakes from my experience, this too would be the most common.
Great, thanks, Chris. All right, I got another question here. All right, so an opinion on joint scene investigations, liability/subrogation. So, what's the best way to handle joint examinations? Sorry, I'm just interpreting the question. What is the best protocol or the best way to handle joint scene examinations with several engineers when several insurers and engineers are involved? This is pertaining to product liability losses, for example. I think Bryan would be great to answer this question.
That's a great question. We get asked that one all the time at sites, especially just for an example, even a quote simple close quote vehicle fire, especially if you're dealing with a highway truck. There's a lot of potential parties. There's the manufacturer of the vehicle, manufacturer of the engine. They may be totally separate. There's usually a service shop, and there may be, depending on the configuration of that vehicle, a bodybuilder, and if it's attached to a trailer, there'll be a trailer or a load policy on that too. Generally, what we say to people is, you know, there are clear standards and guidelines that we have to follow, and when we get to that point in the examination where it may be somebody else's involvement, we have to stop and preserve the exhibit and invite other parties. So our response to our clients is, you know, let's have this discussion with other people. Generally, what we say is, here's my contact information. Kind of spread that contact information around amongst the experts, and we can arrange a joint destructive examination. And then we'll come up with either a formal or a site protocol and work through things. And again, the general understanding is that everybody has to agree on what the steps are going to be, and we'll have a discussion about different points, items, and just step through the different processes.
Great, thank you very much, Bryan. All right, next question is for Yasser. When are building permits required?
This obviously depends on the jurisdiction. From my experience, different provinces have different policies and requirements. I'm not going to cover each and every province in Canada, but I'll talk about Ontario and Alberta to show the difference. In the province of Ontario, pretty much any repair work would require a permit, not only a building permit, but also demolition permit. The only exception that I can think of right now, the backyard deck, if it is less than 2 feet in height, you don't need a permit to build it or repair it. If it is unroofed, if it is covered, you will need a permit. There are also requirements that has to do with the size and the dollar value of the repair work. From my experience in Alberta, minor repairs don't require a permit, but minor defined as probably less than 9 square meters. Different jurisdictions would set a different dollar value on what they would characterize as minor repairs. Other than that, that would require a building permit. Although I have several years of practice and experience, I still on occasion need to contact the building departments to inquire on a particular file whether a building permit is required or not.
Great, thanks, Yasser. Next question. Particularly with the undertaking of destructive testing, have you or would you ever consider facilitating other interested parties participating via conference call or video connection? Let's pass on the mic to Dinu for this one.
This is a very good question, and we received a request for conducting examinations via Skype or via audio lines. However, we personally do not believe in this approach. We would like investigators to be present. From our experience, we noticed that people are, some actions and some words are misinterpreted. So therefore, we prefer to have the experts joining us live in the examination room.
Thanks, Dinu. All right, the question was for Bryan. What are red flags you see consistently in suspicious fires?
This is, yes, there's some general misunderstanding about vehicle fires. There's not a simple answer to this one. It's not just a matter of absence of information. It's a matter of going through the entire vehicle, going through all the processes, going through all the subsystems and components, and does the burn pattern, does the fire damage, does it all seem to make sense as a package? Critical for is some of the background information, discovery information, and this has to be also done with an SIU department or some other investigation. I mean, it's there's all several elements that vehicle fires represent a serious challenge. You know, not only that they burn in a strange and funny way, they still have to correspond to fire dynamics, but simple ventilation, even throughout the progression of a fire, if one of the windows opens because one of the circuits gets energized, and that happens all the time, will dramatically influence and bias the way the burn pattern goes. So yes, there are some elements, but it's not. It's very, very incredibly important to make sure that you've addressed all of the elements before you use that A word.
Never heard of the A word before. All right, so let's keep going here. Another question here, specifically I think to Bryan. Are automakers typically cooperative during a vehicle fire or mechanical failure investigation?
In a general sense, yes, they're great. I can't speak for their internal policies, but I think, you know, my discussions with them, generally they want to do their due diligence. They want to find out what's happening. Sorry, we had a few technical difficulties again. We're back?
I'm disconnected, so I don't know. I think we're okay.
Sorry, we had a few technical difficulties again. In general, so the question was, are manufacturers positive in showing up for vehicle fires and mechanical examinations? In general, they're great. I think that in my discussions with them, I think they want to find out what happened. You know, there's a lot of, I have a lot of contacts with a lot of the manufacturers. I can phone them up directly, not in any way to circumvent them being put on notice or official, but in terms of scheduling, and we can just say, hey, let's set aside a certain day, and we can schedule a joint destructive examination. Yeah, it's great.
Great. So I think we have time for one more question, maybe two. I believe this question would probably be good for Chris. How prevalent are fires originating from space heaters?
Well, a different type of space heaters, and Recently, I haven't seen that many fires caused by space heaters, and perhaps because of the requirements from, I believe it's CSA, that a combustible type of material can be placed on a space heater, and the design of the space heater should have been such that this combustible item will not get ignited by the heat generated by the heater. You know, it's other things than the heater should have been looked at, like power cords damaged accidentally, power cords belonging to the heater. So heaters, in my experience, haven't been a big part of the causes of the fires.
Thanks, Chris. I've got one more question. Time for one more question. Loss or damage resulting from, contributed to, or caused directly or indirectly by wear, tear, gradual deterioration, latent defect, or mechanical breakdown is a well-recognized exclusion under property policies. Particularly, older farm structures are significantly vulnerable to wind. As a result, as a structural engineer, are you able to forensically determine the root of the cause as being either an excluded and insured peril when both likely are contributing factors? So I think this should go to Yasser.
Thanks. Yes, this question kind of similar to the my first frequently asked question, and definitely we have the experience, the tools, the structural analysis methods to be able to make this distinction between a trigger, such as a windstorm, and a root cause. Yes, the windstorm might have been the last push that brought the farm to collapse, but the root cause was not the wind or the wind speed. It was this deterioration that has been going on for years in this farm. And I have worked on several farm files where we were successfully able to provide adequate evidence that the reported cause, usually windstorm, was not what caused damage to the farm.
Great, thank you very much, Yasser. A lot of great questions. Thank you so much for submitting them. We haven't got to all of your questions. I do apologize. We have run out of time. We can go on for days, to be honest. What we will do is we'll make sure that all the folks that have submitted questions and we haven't got to them, we promise to have someone contact you via email or by phone and answer your questions. There is a questionnaire that will pop up on your screen right when we close this webinar. It's only a few questions, and it literally will take you 15 seconds, but we really appreciate all of your feedback. It helps us to understand what types of content that you guys want. Like we host these webinars every couple of months, every few months, and we want to make sure that this is relevant to you guys. We'll be sending each of you a completion certificate in a follow-up email within the next couple of days. If you're in a group, please be sure to email us your name and contact information so we can send you a completion certificate directly. Yeah, we'd love to hear your feedback for future webinars. One of the questions in the questionnaire is what other topics do you have in mind? So that really does fuel what types of discussions that we have, so please do provide that information. If you have any questions, you can give me a call as well, any feedback that you have. Thank you again, guys, for tuning in. You can go to our website, origin-and-cause.com. We have this presentation recorded, and we'll actually post it. As you can see on the side, there's the resources section, and there's a webinar section. You can click on that, forward it on to your colleagues as well. Thank you again for coming out. Really appreciate your time. Thanks. Have a great day.